أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, our dear viewers, and welcome to another episode on the forum. On today's program, again, we have here in the studio some people from the Ombudsman. On my immediate right, I have Juma K. Kamara, who is the Director of Communications, and on his right, we have Landing Bondi, who is the Director of Human Rights. Gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you.
Juma, in our previous program, you were here with another person from another department at the Ombudsman. And we talked about some issues that you people at the Ombudsman do. But there were also some questions that we did not have time to ask. And one of those questions was the appointment of the Ombudsman. We know that the Ombudsman came into existence by an act of parliament in 1997, and it began operation in 1999. But people may be wondering, how is the Ombudsman appointed? So you take us through that before we go to other questions.
All right, thank you very much. The Ombudsman is appointed by the President in consultation with the Public Service Commission, and was subject to confirmation by the National Assembly. So what happens is, if the President comes up with a, should I say, nominee, it's an appointment, but that appointment would not take effect unless members of the National Assembly scrutinize it and look at the suitability of this person, the qualification of this person, that he is the right person for the job, then it will be endorsed by members of the National Assembly. So what happens if the National Assembly does not agree with the President? I think that happens here once. Of course, the viewers will recall that it happened, that the President nominated or appointed somebody, but since the National Assembly was not in agreement, the appointment could not go further. The President had to appoint or select another person, and the Assembly accepted that. So we can also ask, what if the Assembly wants to reject the President, the second person? The Assembly does not have such powers to reject the second appointment. But that is not why we have the Ombudsman there. We have the Ombudsman there because the Assembly was in agreement that he is suitable for the job and competent to handle the post. So his appointment was endorsed. So this is how it happens. The President consults the Public Service Commission, because you already understand that the Public Service Commission is there for the generality of the public sector, except the independent institutions in some form. But here, where the President has to appoint, he consults, and then the Assembly endorses. This is the way an Ombudsman and the two deputies that work with the Ombudsman are appointed.
Thank you very much. We have, that's I think a very important point for people to understand, because it differs from the appointments in other offices. But for the Ombudsman, I think that is why we say in the previous program, that is what made it unique and distinct from other institutions, government institutions. Now let's go to Landing Bondi, the Director of Human Rights. Now you tell us what your unit does in the Ombudsman.
Thank you very much. The Human Rights Unit at the Office of the Ombudsman is one of the units there. You have the Communication Unit, you have Investigation Unit, and you have other sections or maybe other areas like Finance Unit, which is always understood. Our role, actually, Human Rights Unit, is to ensure that human rights is promoted and protected in the public, institutions, to ensure that, public officers, respect human rights, to ensure that human rights is not violated there. That's the main purpose of the unit, to promote and protect human rights in the public sector. That's the main reason why the unit was created. It was created in 2005. So we can say like almost 20 years ago, 2005, we are now 18 years. That's when it was created. And when it was created, the objectives are to ensure that, there is compliance with international human rights obligations, to ensure, to raise awareness of human rights, to ensure that there is no discrimination, and to, where there are human rights issues, to make recommendations or proposals to the government. So these are why the unit was created. So when it was created, it carried out, okay. Well, the question is, what we do. So in summary, that's what we do. That's what it's created for, to promote and protect human rights in the public sector. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Landing Bundy. And we have seen in our previous program, Mr. Kamara, in our previous program, we talked about complaints of people working in government sectors, government institutions who would come to the ombudsman to lodge their complaints, and you will carry on investigations. But apart from the investigations, what other areas do you cover when it comes to the complaints of people?
All right, thank you. When it comes to the other areas, what Bondi has just stated, the human rights. And you see, when we are talking about ombudsman and human rights, they are all the same. When we say ombudsman, you do not hear the word human rights. And when we talk about ombudsman, you hear administrative justice, you hear maladministration. But these are not issues that are different from human rights. Because if you look at what human rights entail, the rights of people as human beings, but the rights of people as public officers. We have our entitlements. Your entitlements are your rights, isn't it? They're your rights. The various entitlements, some of the entitlements that we have talked about in our previous program, these entitlements are forms of rights. So anytime people are denied their entitlements, it's human rights that we are fighting. You have a right to work. Even the Constitution guarantees that no public officer shall be removed from office without just cause. The 1997 Constitution. It also states that no human public officer should be reduced in rank or punished without just cause. It is the right of a person that he works, if he's entitled, if he's appointed. It is his right that the various entitlements, as the program progresses, will talk deep about those things. So it is the work that we do in the Human Rights Division or unit, in addition to what we are doing as in the area of asset declaration. The Constitution, the 1997 Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, in section 223, provides that all public officers should declare their assets to the ombudsman. Their assets owned by them, and liabilities owed by them to the ombudsman. So
that is before they assume office or after they have?
The Constitution, this was supposed to start, I think, 6 months after the coming into being of the Constitution. But even after the coming into being of the Office of the Ombudsman, we did not start the asset declaration component of our work. That is because when you start as an office, it's just like a human being, right? You start crawling, maybe after that you're walking, after that you are able to run, right? The baby or a baby who starts to work today will not start running. So it was a gradual process of trying to cover all our mandates and to do whatever is required of us under the Constitution and the Ombudsman Act. So we started this declaration of assets in 2017. In 2017, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Mr. Adama Barrow, gave orders or instruction to ministers to declare their assets to the Ombudsman. Maybe viewers would understand that Ombudsman has been handling the issue of declaration of assets relating to the work of the ministers. Well, we are doing that. We have to be very clear. We are doing that because the President, in fulfillment of a campaign promise that his ministers would declare their assets, he instructed that they declare assets to the Ombudsman. So the Ombudsman started handling that aspect. And each time a minister is removed from office, the Ombudsman will ask again that the minister declares his assets. And so after that now, it means that anytime there are new ministers appointed, the Ombudsman extends this invitation to them to declare their assets. Now, since the Constitution came into being, there had been people who never declared their assets. Therefore, it means that it was not from the time they assumed office. But now that the process starts, or has already started, what will be happening is that once you start work in the public sector, in public service, you'll be required to declare your asset. So then what the Constitution provides is that there will be asset declaration, and once it is done, it will be done after every 2 years. And upon the person ceasing to hold public office. So if you're no longer a public officer, then you will be. Why is this necessary? Public sector has been an area where people want to illegally enrich themselves. So if you come to the public sector with we know assets, right? And if you are living in 10 years or 5 years or whatever, or after 2 years, then you know there is a huge increase in what you have been able to achieve. Then there should be justification for how you have been able to acquire that. So it's an anti-corruption tool. It's a form of fighting against corruption. It's a form of fighting against illicit enrichment in public office. So in addition to the investigation or receiving of complaints from members of the public, what we are principally doing is as a declaration and human rights activities that Bondi's unit embarks on. These are the main areas that we are currently concerned with. The issue of complaints that we are maybe the viewers who were not here were not opportune to hear, is that in summary, all the actions of public officers, actions that they have done in the course of official duty, that is not in line with the rules or with the laws, with the administrative instruments. These are considered acts of maladministration, and people have a right to complain to the Ombudsman against these official actions of the public officers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jumake Kamara. Now we come to Landing Bondi. You told us in brief what your unit does at the Ombudsman, but you take us through what are the activities that the unit that you led, what are the activities that they are involved in when it comes to the work at the Ombudsman?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, initially I said that the whole purpose is to ensure that is to promote and protect human rights in the public sector. But when it comes to specific activities, we are involved in, protecting the rights of persons deprived of their liberty, because they are counted among people who are, they are among the people who are vulnerable. And when you say persons deprived of their liberty, these are people like prisoners, people detained in police and detainees, people in immigration centers, like let's say prisons, police cells, immigration detention facilities, military detention facilities, psychiatric institutions, people who are kept there, out of their own will. So normally we visit these institutions to ensure that their rights are protected, their rights are respected. We've been doing that, and we do that. We try to protect and ensure that their rights are protected by visiting these places, like prison, police cells, immigration detention facilities, military, and as I've already said. So we visit there, and then to ensure that their rights are protected. And there are different areas that we look at when we visit these places. Like for example, let's start with police cells. When we go there, we ensure that the first attempt is to meet the head of institution, have an initial talk with the person regarding the purpose of our visit. Let's say the mandate of the office first, then we tell them the purpose of our visit and how the visit is going to be conducted. Then when we do that, then we go around the facilities, like cells, if prisons you may talk about, also dormitories and so forth. Of course they have cells, and dormitories being the bigger these buildings and so forth. So when we go there, we look at the cells, whether they contain facilities that are expected of cells. Like we look at whether they have adequate ventilation, because that's what is expected of cells. That's whether they have adequate air, fresh air. Even when they have artificial ventilation, natural ventilation is also, fresh air is expected. We look at that. We look at lighting also. Do they have light, whether natural or artificial in the cells? Are the cells, clean? We look at that one also. We look at also what, material or things are expected in cells. Like, for example, do they have, what to sleep on? We look at that one also. And we look at, whether they have, sanitary facilities inside. Like, for example, toilets inside or outside. We look at that. We also look at whether they have windows in the cells. And if they have windows in cells, are the windows, big enough to allow artificial light and fresh air to enter? We look at all that. Then we also look at, the size of the cells. The number of people they have there, is the cell, size, does it have that size to accommodate them, to avoid overcrowding? We look at overcrowding also in cells. We look at also, whether the cell, has, adequate, temperature, because sometimes it can be very hot and so forth, the nature of it, we look at that. And we look at also whether there are not, insects there. In some cells you may find bed bugs there and so forth. So it's thorough inspection of cells. And cells are only one part of our inspection or monitoring. We go beyond that. We also look at, whether they are informed of their rights. We do ask them whether detainees are informed, and even detainees. We look at also their right to freedom from torture or other forms of ill treatment. We look at that one also. That's because normally this, the detention facilities are places where, torture or other forms of ill treatment are common, because they are hidden from, public view. So because of that, those in charge can take advantage of them. We look at also at whether they are provided meals or food, because that's also their right to adequate food. We look at also that one also. We also look at whether they are provided adequate water. And water here, it should cover many areas. It's not only about drinking water. It should also cover water for drinking and other purposes. Like, for example, taking a bath, or some people call it shower. We look at that one also, and water for probably, especially washing clothes, especially for prisons. But then even cells, one may need that, actually. We look at that one also, food, water, these are basic rights. More especially, we categorize as under economic, social, and cultural rights. We look at that one also. We also look at, when you talk about accommodation, that may fall under the right to adequate housing. Of course, adequate housing is more than that, but then it's an element of it. We also look at their communication, contact with the outside world. If you talk about contact with the outside world, we are not talking about maybe like America or so. As one of my directors asked me, when you say contact, oh, I thought you are talking about other countries. I said, no. I'm talking about like families, friends. Of course, they are not inside it, cells and so. That's why we say outside world, not prisons also. So we look at what that was also their right, whether they are allowed to do that and have visitors. We look at that one also. Their health status and also their access to health services. We look at that right to health care, or in general terms, right to health. We look at that one also to ensure that they are given that. So it's a comprehensive thing. And also, like for example, juveniles are expected not to be in the same cell with adults. We look at that right also, because that right, so interestingly, it is a right in our constitution that juveniles or young persons are not supposed to be in the same cells as adults. If I can remember, I think section 29 of the constitution, if I'm right. That, so fortunately we have that one there. And then we also look at whether women are in the same cells with men. They are also supposed to be separated. So that's also another area of right that we look at. We also, look at a key area that countries do find difficult, not only Gambia, is, for example, their right to have adequate exercise. Normally at least 1 hour exercise. If it goes beyond that, they are fortunate, but at least 1 hour, weather permitting, they are supposed to have that one, actually, unless they are engaged in outdoor activities that involve physical distancing and so forth. Other than that, they are expected to have at least 1 hour exercise. But you've got to police cells, they don't do it. They may be understood slightly, probably saying that they may not be there long, but of course, sometimes you see people being there for long. Exactly. For those who are not going to spend the night there, you may want to understand. Prisons also, will come to that, actually. It's not as one would like it to be, really. We look at all those areas also, and we look at also their right to education, their right to religion, whether they are in detention, they are allowed to practice their religion. Of course, right to religion has limitations. We look at that also. And also, are they allowed to have classes, as I said, education and so forth, vocational training? It's a whole gamut of rights that we look at, actually. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Landing Bondi. We have a list of a list of key areas that you look at in all these government institutions, especially in cells and in prisons. I think that is very, very important. But I will ask a follow-up question here. Sometimes if you go to these institutions, like you are overseeing what they are doing, some of them may not like it. They may think that you are there to encroach on whatever they are doing. They may not like you. They may not like him. So do you face, what are the challenges that you face sometimes if you visit these institutions?
That's a very important question, very important indeed. More especially police, they are very suspicious. Because when you are somebody who investigates people and another person investigating you, you feel uncomfortable. They've been friendly, actually, but in some instances, not quite common, really. Of course, you will see in their appearance that they don't feel comfortable. That one is there. But what I'm trying to say, there is normally no obstacle for them to say, no, you cannot enter. We've encountered a few instances. Talinding was an example where the person said he was not informed and we cannot go in. So my boss Deputy Ombudsman Baji had to call, I think, one of the senior officers, IGP or so, or deputy, because he knows them. So they say, no, these people, because what happened is that before we embark on this thing, I advised the Ombudsman that let's conduct a workshop so that the police will know what we are, police, precincts and others, they will know what we want to do. So we organized a workshop in 2017, informing them about what we want to do, and we want to know how they carry out their own activities, what their operations are, and that we want to embark on. So they were informed, but of course it's not all of them. Senior officers were called, so we asked, like each commissioner, also regions, because since they are the ones in charge of their regions, were invited for them to be aware of what we do. And from there, we asked the IGP and also the prison's head and others immigration to give us a list of the places that have detention facilities. So some of the many officers were not there, but we expect the commissioners to tell them. But it happened that that officer in Talinding police station traveled, went for peacekeeping. So at that time, he was not in. So when he came, so he was doubtful, or suspicious of our activities. Then when his boss was called, he said, no, we were informed about the operation, so allow them to go ahead. And there's another one, I think Brikama, is it Misira or Brikama? There's a place there. That, well, for him, it didn't prevent us from going, but the way he was, approaching, it seems he was not comfortable with us. And then, but later, one thing about them is also when we are, even when we start, talking to them and the issues we address, because normally we don't look at only detainees' issues or prisoners' issues. These are the key issues, but we also look at the challenges faced by the officers. Because they say normally you cannot address only the issues faced by the detainees or prisoners and forget about those in charge. Because those in charge, if you forget about their issues, they will transfer their concerns and worries to detainees. They may not even attend to them very well. That's why it's always important to know their challenges and so forth. So when we reach their challenges section, that's the time you see them brightening up, trying to be happy and so forth, knowing that at least after all, we are not only for the inmates, but also for them or for detainees, because at the end of the day, their welfare. I will come to it when I will tell you how we were able to solve their own challenges. The officers. So yeah, the challenge is there, but then normally they don't. We don't face the obstacle of maybe going inside, checking, doing our operation. Normally we don't. I think it may be 3 or 4. I don't think it's even up to 5 when we face this issue of no, hold on, we have to call our boss first before you enter, because we are not aware of this thing and so forth. I think the other one was Janjabure also, I'm not too sure, but there was another place different from Talinding, and I think other areas. But we go even up to anti-crime. So normally they give us, in all honesty, in all fairness to them, they allow us to get in. But a few instances we were asked to wait for confirmation. Exactly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Landing Bundy and Mr. Kamara. If our viewers are listening very well, they will know by now that the Ombudsman is independent. But nonetheless, you tell us how the Ombudsman is being independent. How far is their independence too?
All right, thank you. The independence of the Ombudsman is guaranteed by the Constitution itself. Section 165 of the Constitution provides for the independence of the Ombudsman. And it states that the Ombudsman is not subject to the direction or control of any authority or public body or person. It's not. The Ombudsman is subject only to the Constitution and the law. So this is unambiguous. It is very clear that the Ombudsman is an independent institution. You have talked about or asked about the appointment of the Ombudsman. One way in which the Ombudsman's independence is guaranteed is that the process or procedures that are followed in the appointment of the Ombudsman, the same are observed in the removal of the Ombudsman. So you see, the president cannot just say, okay, today I'm not happy with the Ombudsman, so therefore Ombudsman go home. Then appoint another Ombudsman. It has to go through Parliament. Tribunal to be set up, and this will be approved or endorsed. And it should be on reasons or based on reasons that are in line with the law or with the laws of the Gambia. Just like I already earlier stated, you cannot remove anybody from office without just cause. So the Ombudsman, for reasons of infirmity, the Ombudsman is physically not able to perform his function because he is sick. He's not able to do so. Or that the Ombudsman is guilty of gross misconduct, and that can be proven. But it takes a process where even the Ombudsman can be legally represented when a tribunal is set up in Parliament about, in looking into the removal of the ombudsman. So the ombudsman's appointment, you notice, follows different procedure or process. The removal also, and the fact that the Constitution states that the ombudsman is an independent body, that is also clearly stated. Then this is section 165 of the Constitution, or subsection 651, and then the 652 states that all other bodies or institutions or public authorities that are subject to the ombudsman's investigation are supposed to grant or assist the ombudsman in performing his function, in protecting the independence of the ombudsman. Again, it states, assist the ombudsman in protecting the independence of the ombudsman, its dignity and effectiveness. So there cannot be any other requirement to grant independent status to any public body, to any public institution, more than what you have in this situation. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. You have the independence of bodies or institutions that are provided for or guaranteed by an act of parliament, but you know, an act of parliament is subservient to the Constitution. So that's one aspect. And it's good to look at the independence in the sense that what it says, the ombudsman is not under the direction and control of any public authority. It means that the opportunity for a senior officer somewhere to say, ombudsman, do not look into that case. Don't investigate that complaint. Oh no, you are going too far, stop there. It's not there. So we are not under any ministry. We are not under the office of the president or under the National Assembly. We have a reporting obligation to the president and a reporting obligation to the National Assembly. Does not mean that you are under an institution or a public authority. If you are under a public authority, it means that your day-to-day operation is subject to their control. That's what it means. If you are under a ministry, it means that they can influence, they can determine, they can give instruction to you as to what to do or what not to do, where to go, where not to go, what to touch, what not to touch, to which direction, to which degree. That is not what's happening in the case of the ombudsman. So how does the ombudsman get its resources? From the government or from the public. In the sense that the operational cost of the ombudsman are funds that are charged on the consolidated fund. So it is your consolidated revenue fund. So it is the money that you, all of us acquire through our various government, revenue generating, avenues, tax or whatever, that the ombudsman is also a fund that is provided for. That is why the services of the ombudsman are not paid for. We said it last week. That is why the services of the ombudsman are not paid for, because you are already paying for our operation. The salary that I receive, he receives, any one of us receive, the vehicle, the buildings, whatever it is there, the electricity, everything, it comes from the public. So we do not charge for our services. So they are completely free of charge. So the ombudsman's independence is guaranteed. So whenever ombudsman arrives at a decision, following the investigation of a case, it means the ombudsman has arrived at this decision based on the evidence, information available, and what the ombudsman considered rightly so, in light of the administrative instruments and the laws of the country, but not necessarily that it is flawed, directed, or influenced by an outsider. So that is something that people should rest assured and have.
Thank you very much, Jumanke Kamara. Mr. Landing Bunny, let me come back to you. I think you touched a very important point when you were answering the question I asked you. You are not only concerned about the rights of prisoners, but those who are in charge of the prisoners. You told us some of the challenges you faced, but you also tried your best to solve challenges officers themselves faced. And like you put it, that also put a smile on their faces to understand that you are not investigating them, but you want everything to follow due process. And that will take us to the next point, and that is would be your achievements in that unit. I think we have about 6-7 minutes,
Okay,
so you make it brief
Yeah,
so that
certainly. The challenges, I mean, we've already talked about, and the achievements actually, as I said, I mean, Mile 2 didn't have any sick bay when we went there, I think 2017, 18. But then we recommended that let the sick bay be there because we interviewed the nurses and they highlighted that issue. They needed, they really needed it. So thank God you now have a sick bay there, and now it can accommodate, I think, up to 8 people. When before they didn't have a sick bay, it was only one room, and they used to have one or two. But even the sick bay, they have some, at least, material there and so forth. That one is one of the achievements. And then security people also, that one is for prison, but then security officers also, as I said, they didn't have any risk allowance when we started investigating. So police, immigration, prisons. So we recommended, they started with police got it, and from sergeant downwards, I think sergeant was downwards. Then later, others complained prisons. We said prisons also and immigration, let them also have it. Now they all have it, at least 1,000 added to as risk allowance. Before it was not there. So that's why I'm saying that I said that we also look into their issue. Then when it comes to detainees in police cells, food was a problem. But then when we recommended, and they started, helping them with food. Of course, we still have many police stations not providing food, not given food by government. Of course, it's the officers, and we'll come to that later. But then in Combo here, especially KMC and Banjul, the PIU provides food for them cook. Some said anti-crime. So, but before it was not there. So that's some achievement. We still have many, maybe the majority not getting food from government, but at least something has been achieved in that area. Exactly. So if you look at also the torture, also we can say that we monitor that, and then we hardly come across torture. They say when you start monitoring and they know that the detainees will talk to you, police they try to avoid, doing anything considered torture or ill treatment. So that one also, I can say we hardly encounter that one. So there's a monitoring visit normally is a preventive tool. On the issue of ill treatment, because once they know that you can come at any time, they'll be cautious. They will try to avoid that. So I can also count that as some effort of achievement. Of course, we have democracy now, and people are conscious of their rights. But then our visit also contributes a lot. In a few instances, we encounter issues like maybe being beaten or so. But the next time we visit, we hardly hear of that, and it makes strict warning. And sometimes we say, let them be investigated for proper actions to be taken. Yeah, so I can say we've made some achievement in that area, trying to prevent torture, or trying to make sure that it is limited, and to ensure that the recommendations are made for detainees to be provided food. Some have started doing that, and Mile 2 also. When we went there, we talked about the uniforms, one not being adequate, and the DG told us that they started giving 2 uniforms to each, 2 pairs of uniform to each prisoner. So some element of achievement has been made there. And there was also overcrowding. Mile 2 pre-trial detention area, remand wing. We asked them to expedite, to finish Joshua blocks there, new one, they finished. Now we are about to go back to prison visit, but I was told that now all the remand prisoners are in Joshua prison. Previously, they were in a terrible condition. They lie underneath. If you see beds, as if sardines. But then thank God now they are in Joshua. Exactly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Landing. Bondi, I wanted to ask follow-up questions on that, but the time will not allow us. Now I will come to you. What overall would you say is the importance of your office, maybe, and his office in the Ombudsman?
Okay, since let us make human rights the focus. since he's here today. I think one thing we should remind or remember is that the ombudsman, since it is there for everybody, and the fact that they are going to prisons and detention centers is an indication that we have got everybody covered. Accessibility is very important when it comes to the dispensation of justice. That you do not have the mechanisms out there or the tools, but that people should be able to have access to those mechanisms. One important thing we should focus on is that he mentioned that the prisoners are among the vulnerable in society.
If not the most vulnerable.
The most vulnerable. And that is why if you go to Ombudsman, the Ombudsman Act, Section 11, it provides that the people in prison or prisoners or detainees or people kept in any public institution. Public institution here is broad now. It goes beyond prison, even goes beyond police detention facilities, but it can be even people who are hospitalized. Anybody who is kept under a public institution, if we are to make a complaint, it should not be made through a third party or subject to the scrutiny of a third party. That means that ombudsman should be able to have access to them. So when we go to prisons, one thing we should understand is that when we go to, we give the prisoners or the detainees opportunity, give them the opportunity to also lodge their complaints with the ombudsman, to complain to the ombudsman. He mentioned some of the things that they observe, but those, you remember all of those things, but the people themselves, they interview them. They ask them questions. They have an opportunity to say, this is what happened to me. They have because if somebody is under detention and he has to complain to the ombudsman and he writes to the person in charge of him, say a complaint about that person, addressed to the ombudsman, are you sure that complaint is going to reach? It's not. It can be compromised also. And also, it can be prevented from reaching the ombudsman. But there can also be backlash without even the ombudsman having no knowledge that somebody attempted to make a complaint. So access is important. Protecting the rights of everybody, or especially the vulnerable, is something that the ombudsman is able to achieve. You can see that's why we have our services in the provinces. We are in Basse, we are in Mansakonko, we are in Kerawan, that is North Bank. We even want to be in the West Coast. So we are working on the issue of accessibility, but people, everybody, all of us in all regions should have access to the ombudsman.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Jumake Kamara and Landing Bondi. Both of them are from the Office of the Ombudsman. And today we have heard the important points that you have made here. That is, you in just short, you are there for the general public. Yeah. That's it.
We are there for everybody.
Yes.
Including, Bondi has mentioned how they have been able to stand for the people who are responsible for the detainees and looking into their own conditions and making recommendations to uplift them. So it's like we are there for everybody. And even if you're not a Gambian, as long as you are here in the Gambia, we are here for. If you are in any public institution, your focus should not be that ombudsman is here to look into what I'm doing. Ombudsman wants to subject me to scrutiny. No, your focus should be that ombudsman is here for me, because I can also stand in need of the ombudsman, because my rights too can be violated. And because today I am powerful and strong, it doesn't mean that I will continue to be powerful and strong and stay in office forever. That does not happen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamin K. Kamara and Mr. Landing Bondi. This is all time allowed us. We hope to get you in our next episode, inshallah.
Thank you.
Viewers, this is all time allowed us on your program, that is the forum. Today we were talking again with the people from the Ombudsman, and we have all heard together what they have said. So this is all time allowed us from us MT International Gambia Studios. We say Assalamu alaikum until next time.